I've learned a lot along the way about innovation. And one of the things I've learned is that it's the fearless pursuit of success, the willingness to be wrong frequently, and the assumption that every time you're wrong, you're going to learn something that's going to move you further forward than you just step backward. Shortly after my friend and co-founder Harrison Dillon and I co-founded Solazyme, we raised our first investment round, and we came to the painful conclusion that our initial technology was not going to work as we'd envisioned. It was a brutal realization for us. But the true innovation came when we went to our initial investors and our board with another technology. And instead of shuttering the company, the investors doubled down on us. And we all need the courage to double down on our commitment to an alternative energy future. Well, what does Solazyme do? We make oil. Oil is the world's principal fuel source, and it's not going to lose that distinction anytime soon. And today, there are three main sources of oil: petroleum, plant, and animal. And collectively, they touch our lives every day in numerous ways, from things that we all know about, like the petroleum-based fuel in our cars, to things that are less obvious, like the plant oil in the paint on the wall in this room. Oils are a key ingredient in modern society, and whether we like it or not, mankind is addicted to oil. For the developing world, where either fuels or cooking oils may be unaffordable, a lack of oil is often an insurmountable barrier to prosperity or to overcoming hunger. For the developed world, we use oil in everything from the planes we fly in to the food we eat, but also to the chemicals in many of the products that we enjoy every day, like our iPhones, our laptops, our detergents, and our soaps. And the dependence comes with an increasing price, and not just economically. Oil destabilizes nations and economic systems, and the means by which it's obtained degrades our environment. The global population will grow from about 7 billion people today to 9 billion people by 2045. That means many, many more mouths to feed, many more people driving, and many more people flying. And this is a massive problem for our planet. Solving it is not going to be easy. But it's going to be even harder if we don't act now. So I'm going to talk a little bit about innovating in the oil industry, because that's particularly difficult for two primary reasons. And the first is that the oil industry, the planet's most profitable, has been developed by incumbents for over 100 years. And those incumbents have managed to bury financial and structural advantages under numerous rocks. Second, our energy policy is unfortunately today driven by 2-year election cycles, while innovation in this industry occurs in 10-year cycles. If we don't change our approach, we're going to go further and further down a finite road. The so-called solutions many of the incumbents are offering are non-renewable and unsustainable, like natural gas fracking, converting coal to liquids, strip mining tar sands. And these are going to dominate alternative energy investment despite the environmental harm, unless we get serious about sustainable alternatives. So if you're a policymaker, you're right to see oil as the fulcrum of economic prosperity. You want to make oils more widely available for all of the uses that society demands. You want to make oil cheaper, cleaner, and healthier. You want to eliminate the environmental risks from extracting oil from the ground or the ocean or from a palm plantation. You want to protect shorelines, wildlife habitats, and rainforests. You want to avoid enriching despots and strengthening non-democratic governments whose only claim to legitimacy is a stranglehold on natural resources. That's what you're thinking about if you're a policy maker. But what about if you're an entrepreneur? Well, we see the same problems, but we see them as opportunities. Harrison and I went to college together, and we spent many long nights starting in the late 80s talking about biotechnology and the environment, and discussing how we might use the former to improve the latter. And finally, in 2003, after well more than a decade of planning and talking, we started Solazyme in a garage in Silicon Valley, and we set out to develop a biotechnology platform that would make oil renewably, any kind of oil. At Solazyme, we make oil by converting plentiful, sustainable, biomass-based plant sugars into tailored oils that serve the multitude of applications the world demands. We harness the power of photosynthesis to convert carbon dioxide and sunlight into sugars, and the evolutionary power of microalgae to convert sugars to oil. We do this by feeding a variety of sustainable biomass-derived sugars from things like switchgrass, sugarcane, and municipal green waste to algae in big stainless steel tanks, and the algae convert those plant-based sugars into oil. They do it rapidly and efficiently. While it takes millions of years to make crude oils and months to years to harvest plant oils, our process takes a few days. So I guess if there are two things to understand about Solazyme, the first is that we've developed the first platform to convert sustainable biomass-based plant sugars into oil at low cost and high volume. And the second is that we've developed the ability, using biotechnology, to tailor the compositions of those oils, from the ideal oils for fuels and chemicals to the perfect heart-healthy nutritional oil. And one of the keys to our approach is that our oil and process fits directly into existing production, distribution, and consumption infrastructures. From fermentation and refining infrastructures to many applications, you don't have to change anything to use our oil, which is critical to its adoption. Innovation is also the product of creativity, hard work, and specifically flexibility. Let's call it the open-minded requirement. We didn't seek at Solazyme to get into the food business. In fact, we thought about ourselves as a renewable energy and a fuels company. But we were open to following our technology where it led us. And it was interesting. As we developed our first renewable fuels technology, we heard from many of the producers that there was a need for a biodiesel fuel that would perform very well at very cold temperatures. And those same biodiesel producers told us that there was a specific oil composition that would help them do this, and they couldn't find that oil composition. So we went back to the lab and we identified a strain of algae that could make that oil. And it worked. We made a wonderful biodiesel that worked very well at cold temperatures. But when we stepped back and we looked at that oil, we realized we'd also done something else. We had developed a highly unsaturated, heart-healthy oil with a composition almost identical to olive oil. So this was one of those aha moments for us. So flash forward 4 years to today, and today we have a joint venture partnership with a French company called Roquette, and as part of that joint venture, we're producing a multitude of nutritional oils, flours, and powders from algae that are superior in taste, have lower saturated fat and cholesterol than what's been available. And really excitingly, recently we developed an algae-based, ready-to-use therapeutic food that meets the requirements of the World Health Organization. CGI members are accustomed to hearing about companies with new technologies and business models. Solazyme definitely fits the description. But one of the most important things for you to take away from this session today is that a key agent of change in the adoption of sustainable, renewable fuels is one of our oldest U.S. government institutions, the Navy. When we were a very young company, a potential investor came to meet with us, and he told us that if we succeeded in our mission, we would disintermediate big oil. And he left, he never made the investment, but he caused a little stir between us, and we spent quite a while discussing the definition of disintermediate. It wasn't a word we heard every day. And we came to the conclusion that he was just flat wrong. If we wanted our technology to be adopted broadly and to make a big difference, we would need to work with big oil and the multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure they controlled. But we had a small problem. We realized we'd never met with anyone in big oil. A little oversight. So we went out to those meetings, and we went out the way entrepreneurs do, selling the vision of an ideal, low-cost custom oil. In every single one of those meetings, the people on the other side of the table said the same thing to us. They said, shut up. Listen. Don't tell us you're going to make us an ideal oil, and don't tell us you're going to do it at $1.50 a gallon. Show us that you can do it at scale. We have 100 years of experience in this oil company, and we know that if you can scale up a process, we can drive costs down dramatically over time. So we went back to our lab and we ripped up our R&D plan. And we realized that we needed partners who would understand the potential and were willing to help us demonstrate that our technology would scale. Enter the U.S. Navy. There's no better problem-solving organization in the entire world than the U.S. military. Many of the problems the military encounters are potentially life or death, giving them the greatest incentive to encourage innovation, but also the most experience in doing so. So to demonstrate scale, we partnered with the Navy, delivering our first small quantities to the Navy in 2008. And by 2010, we had succeeded in delivering the largest microbial drop-in fuel deliveries in history. And the U.S. Navy was the partnering customer. And the Navy has run ships and helicopters on our marine diesel and jet fuels. I'm honored to share the stage today with Tom Hicks, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Navy. And under the leadership of Tom and Secretary Ray Mabus, the Navy is truly among the unsung heroes of innovation in America today. We're proud to work with them in realizing the promise of advanced biofuels. So if you're going to tackle the biggest problems of our time, whether it's creating a renewable source of oil for fuel or food, or creating jobs to get the economy moving again, we need to walk the walk. As citizens, we need to demand that our government create a smart, long-term, forward-looking energy policy that enables large private investments and levels the playing field. One of the things I hear all the time is that renewable fuels must be at parity with petroleum. However, with the number of hidden subsidies and benefits enjoyed by the energy incumbents, this rings hollow, since parity is not actually that. We need to support the government's diversified investment portfolio, and particularly topical, given the current challenges to the DOE's loan guarantee program, we need to recognize that, that without a tolerance for failure, there's no innovation. And I'll say that again, without a tolerance for failure, there is no innovation. Our story says that, history says that, and we need to be aware of that. As citizens, we also need to protect the forward-looking decisions our governments have already made, even when times are tough like today. An example of this, from my perspective, is protection of the 2007 Energy Independence and Security Act signed into law by President Bush. Part of that law requires U.S. government agencies, including the Department of Defense, use only alternative fuels with greenhouse gas footprints better than or equal to petroleum. This excludes the use of tar sands and other dirty alternatives, and it is under assault today by entrenched interests. We need to stand up and we need to protect the good decisions we've already made, even when times are tough. Partnership and innovation are critical ingredients to solving our challenges, and those who've been involved in innovation and collaboration know how messy and complicated they can actually be on the ground. It doesn't take courage to cut and run, but it does take courage to stand up in the eye of the storm, much like our initial investors did when they continued to support us. There are billions of people counting on us to move forward toward a sustainable future together, and there are many, many solutions to help us get there. We need the courage and discipline to act on these solutions together. Thank you.